we'll get started with session 3, the breakout session called Community Building. Welcome to your session. This is really your session because it's a roundtable discussion. And it sounds like everyone's interested in getting together and doing more of that networking and talking. So this is the session that will allow you to share best practices and also realize that the HBCU-UP program officers are in the room and we'll be listening as well. So if you have things to say directly to us, make those things known. All right, I'll introduce myself. My name is Jeremy Gwynn. I'm a program officer in the HBCU-UP program. I also work in the Teacup program. I'm a rotator from a tribal college in North Dakota. I also work on 2 other programs that might be of interest to you. The first is ECR, Building Capacity for STEM Education Research. And that program is a faculty professional development program. Thank you. No. Thank you. I'm about as close as I can get to the microphone. All right, appreciate that. So my name is Jeremy Gwynn. I work in the HBCU-UP program as a program officer. I also work in the Teacup program for tribal colleges and universities. I also work on 2 other programs that might be of interest to you. The ECR BIXER program, which is Building Capacity for STEM Education Research, and that is a faculty professional development program. How many of those have you ever heard of, right? So it's professional development in STEM education research. So if you're new to STEM education research, or if you're another discipline that's looking to make your way into that area, the BIXER program, BCSER, is the program for you. It's a faculty professional development program. The other program I work on is Expand AI, which seeks to build AI capacity in MSI institutions. So MSIs are the only ones eligible. So if you're looking to build AI capacity from ground zero, right? We start at the lowest level of no capacity at all. There's 2 tracks. There's the capacity building track, and then there's a partnership track. So if you have AI capacity and you're looking to partner, then that's a separate track within that program, Expand AI. All right, so we'll get started. I'm going to have my co-facilitator for this event introduce herself, and then we'll get started on the discussion group. So, Tori Smith.
Thanks, Jeremy, and good morning, everyone. My name is Tori Rolak-Smith. I am a program director, along with Jeremy, in the Division of Equity for Excellence in STEM at NSF, and it is my pleasure to work with Jeremy on this session this morning. We do also want to note that we have a third colleague who is partnering with us to engage our virtual audience, and that is the newest IPA to the HBCU-UP team, Joyce Belcher. And so the 3 of us are tag teaming today, but we look forward to engaging with you. Back to Jeremy.
All right, so we won't spend much more time on the intros. This is your time to build community and discuss. So again, the room locator, if you have any questions, we'll come back to this. Here are the discussion boundaries. So you know how discussion groups work, right? We're gonna ask you to choose a recorder and a reporter from each table. Then we'll have some discussion time, and then we'll ask you to report back at the end to the broader group. So again, make sure you have identified that person. Could be 1 person, could be 2 people for those separate duties. Please allow all members to talk. We'll have 4 slides. You'll have about 10 minutes per slide to work on that particular topic. If you have a full table, that only means about a minute per person if you have 10 people at your table. So please don't monopolize. Make sure we spread around the wealth, and then we get everyone's perspective here in our discussion. Attempt to provide equivalent time. So I'll run the slide. You'll see the first question, then I'll move on. Please move on at that point to the next question. I know there's a lot that we could talk about each of these questions, but please move on when the slide changes. And then the report out. All we're asking is the 3 key comments that your table wants to make out of that 40-minute discussion. We're just asking for the 3 most important key points that each group will come up and provide at the end for the report out. Okay? So the reporter's job is maybe a little easier, right? 3 key elements. All right, so at this point, I'll pause for just a minute, identify your reporter and your recorder. If you like, go ahead and do that at your table, and then we'll move on to the next slide. All right, one last thing. I've been asked to repeat part of the earlier part, so attention please. All right, again, this session is about community building. There you go. So the room locator on the slide may help you reassort or sort yourself. Up front, along the wall, we have the IMP ACE projects, the implementation projects. In the back are the RIA, Research Initiation Awards. Up front in the middle are the TIP Awards, the Targeted Infusion Projects in the front. In the back are all those other opportunities. So from the PAPG Chapter 2, things like equipment and travel and rapids and eagers, et cetera. Up front are the BPR projects, broadening participation research individual projects. And then at the back are the BPRCs, the centers, building participation research centers. All right. Okay, for the sake of time, I think we'll move on, and we can come around the room and help if anyone else has questions. But question number 1, topic number 1 is on the screen. Now we're on the opportunity slide, so please change your discussion. Okay, moving on to the last slide. This is our last slide of questions, last 10 minutes for discussion. So get whatever you need out. This is on the threats of the funding track. All right, thank you everyone. We'll come back together as a group. I appreciate your efforts and your discussion. Obviously a lively conversation around these topics. For the reporter, this is what we're looking at as far as a report format. Simply state the track. We're going to bounce around between tables and go out of order. But you'll state the track that you're working on. And then again, the 3 main points that you want to communicate with your colleagues and with the NSF program officers here. So we'll give you just a second to kind of settle on those 3 items, and then we'll pass around the mic. Okay. Also, apologies to the virtual attendees. I know they got cut off a little bit short on the last conversation. We will be hearing from their responses as well. We're collecting those now, and we'll be sharing that out to the larger group as well. All right, are we ready? Carlita gets to pick the first table.
So usually I would start in the front of the room, but I'm going to go against what I would typically do, and I'm going to come to the way back of the room and get this group an opportunity to kick us off.
Hi, our funding track is RIA, and let's see. Oh, can you hear me? Okay. So what attracted us to RIA is that it's designed for us, I guess most of us here are junior faculty members, and limit the pool of applicants with limited experience, and so we felt like we could compete more compared to more experienced faculty members. And I guess, let's see, and we also appreciated that coming from smaller institutions, primarily undergraduate, that there was a specific portion that would allow us to integrate undergraduate students in our research and be able to train them. let's see. I think one of the challenges was also the limited submission, since only, each school could submit two. That kind of put a burden on which two really good proposals, or I don't know how the school selects them, as opposed to having more applications coming from junior faculties. I think that's what we have. Oh, sorry. Let's see. External factors. Was this? I guess we wanted to have a more staggered deadline for the RIA, and I think we felt that would help other junior faculty just to be able to pace themselves out for grant submission. So.
Thanks for sharing. Am I at liberty to continue to choose? Oh, okay, great. Let's go with this table over here.
So I'm Angelino Vices, Associate Professor of Economics at Spelman, and I'm the reporter, and thanks to Carlene, who was our note taker, the recorder. So the three things we came up with, first of all, we were broadening participation, but we were basically this miscellaneous group that had interest in multiple things. So we ended up talking about the HBCU-UP program just generally in terms of the questions. So the first thing we came up with, which is about what interests us about the program, is opportunity to introduce research at institutions that traditionally do not have research capacity. And also most of us felt, or some of us felt, like this is our home, right? I mean, we're at HBCUs, so by default, this is the program that we belong in, and that carries through to peer review and funding rates and all of that. So that's our first point. In terms of problems with proposal submission, grants management, we had a lot to say since many of our institutions are small and don't have a lot of capacity, and in some instances, even the experience to be able to submit these proposals and manage them. So one idea that came out of that is whether NSF, and maybe this already exists or is in the works, but can have an award track for HBCU capacity building that sort of spans the faculty staff spectrum in that proposal submission process. And then in terms of other new awards or new tracks, one idea that was proposed is whether NSF can support these bridge programs to basically get better retention in terms of grad school, and specifically targeting that middle of students that are coming out of undergrad and might go into a master's program headed into the PhD level. Did I forget? Oh, and then increase award sizes. Because we're very resource constrained, so that never hurts.
Thank you. Okay, let's move back up front over here. I'll come to you guys.
Morning, everyone. Can everyone in the back hear me as well? Yeah. Yes? Excellent. So one of the benefits for the TIP program is that it allows us to identify some weaknesses that may be present and fix them. It gives us a good opportunity to expose our students to new ideas as well as new opportunities that may be beneficial for them in the always changing workforce. One of our solutions for the TIP program is, of course, we had the same issue, is to increase the number of awards per institutions so that there's more availability of funds and supplements, because there are a number of great ideas, but they don't all get implemented because we can only submit 2 per institution. And the last point or key comment that we had was for faculty to have some sort of better buyout time or sabbatical to actually be able to plan and implement the components of TIP. Many of us don't have an opportunity to do that the way we would like to do so because we have such heavy teaching loads. So we would like to have more time to do that.
will stay up front and come right here.
So the funding track is a TIP, Targeted Infusion. Yes. So we identify a couple of things of key points here. One of them was that the program actually helped us improve the enrollment of students in non-life science classes like mathematics and physics and stuff like that. And then the program also improves students' engagement in classrooms. Then another suggestion we had was that we think the NSF can create an undergraduate research program and a small instrument fund for teaching that can go up to about 100K. So that will enable undergraduate students to actually engage themselves in research other than just learning and teaching. Then we also talked about the lack of administrative support in order to run the program, and also issue with release time, which is usually due to very low adjunct salaries. So it's hard to recruit adjunct to do the work when we are focusing on the project. Then we also think that it will be interesting if the NSF can increase the duration of the program to 4 to 5 years. That will give time for us to track the student, from when they get into the first year until they graduate. That's usually a 4 to 5 time period. So if the program can also have that same duration, it will be interesting. I think I've said everything. Okay.
Hi, I'm Marie Hammond from Tennessee State University, and Sometimes I talk too loud, thank you. I'm Marie Hammond from Tennessee State University, and I'm representing our group here. We were talking about the Broadening Participation Research Centers. We had an amazing conversation because we had some folks who had actually put in a proposal for it. And so what attracted us to this is the opportunity to collaborate across institutions and to maximize the focus on a particular core topic and really dig deep into it and be able to generalize that information, our research across a larger population. So from a psychological perspective, there's broader application. So that's some of the stimulus for doing that. And also to bring people together with different worldviews so that we could have a better picture of what this topic was. Let's see, and also to help students train students was another thing. So some of the weaknesses of the funding track, the limitation of one submission. Sometimes it can take multiple years to even get through the line to do that. And making sure you connect and build an infrastructure was another thing another idea that came out of this, is having a way to communicate across the institutions. And so that was something that we would need to pay attention to. And the opportunities were, the opportunities to grow this was, we didn't know this, but you have to have had a number of ACE grants before you can apply for a BPR. And so that's something that focuses at the institution level, and I, as an individual faculty member, don't have the capacity to influence other people to get other grants. And so that seemed to be kind of like it might be a barrier to some folks applying, because if you don't have that legacy of these ACE grants, you're stopped. So that was a concern. And then the other thing is that the infrastructure, the assumptions about the infrastructure that our institutions have or don't have can make it harder for us on our end to be able to do all the things and keep it organized and keep it going, because we don't have the kinds of staffing that, for example, a Research One would have. Threats to the funding track is the sustainability after the fact. Our institutions, what we were seeing was our institutions don't have the extra funding to kick in the funding to keep it going. So the fact that we're going to have to recruit funding and move into development mode to get funding was a concern that we needed to think about. So those were the major points from our group.
Thank you. There's been a request that we also address the camera for the reporter, which is in the back of the room. So I'll come to this table.
Thank you. We are with a Research Initiation Award, and we all are PIs of the RIAs. And I think for what attracted us to this funding line is that we all were looking to establish ourselves as scientists in our field. So the grant allowed us to create a research environment in our departments, set up our labs, recruit students, mentor students, and start key collaborations. And then the key point number 2, which I think are the challenges, is that we all have the same, was kind of unanimous here in our table that we're sort of buried in administrative paperwork, and we can't seem to find really a way out to. So even though we receive our grants, we're having difficulty spending efficiently, and last night we referred to conversation about participant costs. So all of us here are having that challenge, spending those funds. And I think looking towards the future, we came up with this discussion here, thinking about where we're going to go after our RIA. What should we do next? And the grants that came up in our discussions were the EIR, potentially, or even a career. But we worried that we were going to be held to standards that we may not be able to live up to. Our collaborators are working at a much faster pace in their R1 institutions. So we thought it would be very interesting if the HBCU-UP program had a follow-up program to the RIA in those terms that would allow us for sustainability of our research. So we could keep going and not just then, after the RIA, we're kind of scrambling a little bit. So those were the main points.
Thank you. We have a few minutes left. I want to hear from the online virtual participants. So I'm going to take the mic over to Tori.
All right, there are a number of similarities in what was shared online and what we've heard in the room, so I will try not to be duplicative. So if you're listening from our online audience and I don't mention something you've said, it's just because it overlaps a theme that's already been raised here in the room. But one of the suggestions, and I should also note that the online group wasn't specific to any one funding track, so these comments will be general, sort of across the range of the HBCU tracks. But one suggestion was around mandatory training for offices of sponsored programs around budgets and contracts and other related offices. And so for those online, there is hearty agreement in the room. Some of the challenges noted were similar to what was mentioned in terms of next steps. So there were some challenges noted with applying to the Excellence in Research opportunity, not having sufficient funding to establish a lab. There was mention of the 20% equipment restriction that comes with the EIR grant around instrumentation and how that limits the ability to set up a lab. A number of resource challenges were noted, of course. Some challenges with getting student participation and ways that NSF might be able to encourage that. And let's see, there were a few more. Having offices of sponsored programs provide short or limited term support for pay of adjuncts. And I did hear that mentioned so that that pay could be commensurate with what's needed to secure and then allow for course buyout time. And just this idea that with the heavy course loads and the research and the administrative tasks, any ways that NSF might be able to help so that something gets easier. Any one of those things being easier allows more time for faculty to focus on those other aspects. Of course, there were suggestions around more funding for research-focused projects aside from RIA. And so this idea that maybe something at the mid-career level supported specifically through HBCU-UP could be a strong positive for the PI community. Possible regional support from NSF for helping faculty to develop proposals and actually being able to provide that support in regionally focused workshops or events. For teaching faculty with heavy course loads, having a way to actually encourage the release time. So not everywhere there may not be the mechanisms in place for that to be a ready strategy. And I'm looking at the clock. I want to make sure you have time to wrap up, so I'll stop there.
Thanks a lot, Tori, and thank you to the virtual participants. We just have a couple minutes left. We won't get to every group, but we do ask you to send those comments in to us and any others that you have that maybe didn't make the top 3. Send those to any of those emails there, and we'll be happy to entertain those ideas. I'm going to turn it over to Carlita, and she'll wrap us up.
Yes, I just want to thank our colleagues, Tori, Jeremy, and Joyce, for all of your collective efforts in organizing this session. We want to thank you all for your feedback and your insights. We're always learning from you. We understand your effort that's necessary for your projects to be successful, and we want to acknowledge that effort, but also hear from you on how it's going on. I don't know if it feels good to hear that there are common challenges across the board, but it surely helps us to be able to put into perspective how the community is feeling, because at times we tend to address things on a case-by-case basis. And so to hear that kind of at a group level, I think is insightful for us. So we want you to know that we're listening. We are available. Please reach out to us. We pride ourselves in certainly understanding your unique institutional context, what it is that you're working to implement. And my last comment right now is that we also want to celebrate you. So I want you to be empowered by the fact that in your unique institutional context, there is no faculty at a R1 that can do what you do. Amen. There's not a one that can carry and be responsible for everything it is that you do, from teaching to grantsmanship to implementing projects to serving to mentoring to, just the gamut of everything it is that you do. You are successful. You are leading in ways that most institutions can't imagine. And so I encourage you to share that narrative, to find those creative outlets, to highlight everything it is that you're doing, because there's no one else that's doing it in the way that you are doing it. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We know we're wrapping up, at least at the community level, but certainly if you can join us for the closing plenary session, and then of course, as a reminder, we have the rapid sessions to follow for about an hour from 2 to 3, where you can continue to engage with program officers, not only from the National Science Foundation, but other federal agencies. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Until next time.